Hello, my dear friends. Nice to see you again. It's Heidi here, and I'm in the company of this great master, Psio.
Thank you.
Please let me know. Please enlighten us what the privileges are, or what the help is of having your input in a relationship, for example.
Okay, so we're talking about why would somebody come to sit with somebody like me? And it is very multi-stranded. This is why it's very difficult to explain to somebody else what it is I do. It's like telling someone else's joke, but this isn't a joke. Okay, multi-stranded. The two dynamics work in a very similar way. So there's a great adage in it that one of the greatest philosophical questions are, know thyself, and how well do we know ourselves? And if you've had a good balanced life full of experiences and great relationships, you will have learned somewhat a great deal about yourself through the people that you meet, your friends, your intimate relationships, and maybe your working relationships. But there's that internal narrative, that internal dialogue where you're always questioning and
Exactly.
probing things.
Yes.
Okay, so when we talk about relationships, every single interaction we have, whether it's an intimate one, a working one, or a personal one, is a relationship. And we always want all of these relationships to be positive and constructive and long lasting. And we want to build on them. We
Yes.
always want them to be fantastic.
Indeed.
But when people come to see me, the thing that we talk about is the most important relationship, the relationship you have with yourself. Because it is pointless. You can't build a relationship with anybody else until you built that relationship with yourself. And knowing yourself or understanding what you are, who you are, what you want, and why you're here, and what
Yes.
drives you, what motivates you, what stimulates you, what presses the buttons.
Yes.
Yeah, when you understand that, that's a very powerful thing. That's a very powerful place to be.
Hmm.
When you work and understand that dynamic, good, bad, or ugly, when you can iron out the creases on the difficult things,
Yes.
then you've got a great place to start and then work on all your other relationships. And they could be relationships with your spouse, your siblings, your parents, your children. I mean, this is a
Exactly.
lost
Yes.
relationship, is the relationship we have with our children.
Yes.
But when you understand yourself, and then you can understand the dynamic of those that are closest to you,
Okay.
that's an amazing place to be. And that's why people come to me, and that's why I'm always busy.
Amazing. And you're able then, by analyzing their name and their birth date.
Yes, I mean, we're multi-stranded and we're lots of different things and lots of different energies at lots of different times any given time. So yes, why we're positive or negative, one day is never the same as the
No,
next.
exactly. Yeah.
So our energy is constantly changing,
Yes.
it's constantly fluxing like the
Yes.
tides.
Yes.
Okay, so someone come to me could be knotted or lost
Yes.
or broken, or something's not quite working, or they're
Yes.
making repeat
Yes.
mistakes,
Yes.
or they're frustrated,
Mm-hmm.
or there's something there, they know it's there, but they don't know what it is and they can't make the connection. Coming to see someone like me, or having this kind of skill set, talking about this energy, this IO, is it's very revealing and it's very explorative. So, the great thing is, for some people, they can't speak, they can't talk, they don't
Yes.
understand, they can't make the link emotionally, mentally,
Yes.
and then voice it.
Yes.
Well, the great thing is, numerically, there's a way of doing this. And the gift, if you like, if you call it a gift,
Yes.
or the skill set, if
Yeah.
you like, is that I can join those dots and I can give it expression and a voice, and everything starts becoming clearer. And you can't fake this, you can't hide from it. It's
Yes.
it's
Is
black
there?
and white almost. You can see it. So once you understand your narrative, once you understand your dynamic, you can work with it. You can build on it. I change names, but people say to me, "Oh, do you always change people's names?" I'll say, "No, not necessarily. Sometimes it's just a question of ironing out a few creases. You need to be aware of a few things.
How would you do that?
Well, first of all, you need to identify. You need to reveal. You need to identify what you're working with. You need to
Yes.
see what you have and then make sense of it. You can once you start revealing certain correspondences, certain patterns,
Yes.
and you make them every day, people can start seeing, oh, I can see that makes sense. I can see what I'm doing here.
Yes.
Now, it's almost like a song. It's going a certain way. It's a we talk about genres and music.
Yes.
People
Yes.
are be like genres of people. This is why people are interested in certain things or have certain leanings. Some people are very family orientated. Some people are very independent.
Yes.
Some people are very emotional. Some people are very mental. Some people are very physical. There's a ideally we like to have a good balance of everything. But some people can be stacked in certain ways.
Yes.
But you work with what you've got. If what you've got doesn't make you happy, then you can evolve it. You can tweak it, you can add to it, And it is just an energy we're talking about here. Now, what's always fascinated me is when women marry, they often change their name.
Yes.
I mean, it's actually becoming more popular for women to keep their own names, or they double barrel. And historically, I would say actually women adopting a married name is a more recent thing, because historically it was usually the man that changed his name, because there was a time where there was a lot more landowners, so people would marry onto an estate and they would take on the estate name or that family name, as was the tradition. But nowadays, or say since Victorian times, women have married, taken on their partner's name, and changed their dynamic. Now, it's always a funny thing, because I always say this. When one of the vows, isn't it, for better or for worse? Sickness and health. Right. For me, the better or worse is when you change your name, you change your dynamic. Right. You may be losing certain energies, or certain gaining characteristics, yes, or yes, gaining, right. Exactly, okay. And that will change the overall dynamic. This is why boy meets girl. I say boy meets girl, boy, but I don't think you're going to get two people going to change their names if they're male or they're female. Yeah. But well, unless they hyphenate. But generally speaking, boy meets girl. They might be in a relationship for a period of time. It could be 3 or 4 years. They want to take it to the next level. They think about planning and having a family. Then they get married. Then all of a sudden they marry. And the dynamics change. Right. You can have a very long, strong relationship, yes. But as soon as something marries, and it's not the pressure of marriage, because
but they assume it may be the pressure of marriage.
It's the dynamic change. Now, this can work in many, many ways. This can be a very positive thing, but it could also be quite a destructive thing. Right. Because the strangest thing is, generally speaking, when a woman changes her name and it's a married name, the dynamic will change. She may not notice it, but the partner will, and will compensate accordingly. Right. Now, the thing about these expressions is they change the way we think, yes. They change the way we feel, and they change the way we act, sometimes subtly. Now, it could be that you change a name and it's a very similar energy, mm-hmm. But you could be changing a name that's got a totally contrasting energy. Also, the energy that's present in letters and numbers closely correlate the energy that's present in colour. And women are better with this, but they know what colours go, yes. And they know what colours clash. Well, there's a similar dynamic with the energy that's present in names and numbers, because some numbers gel and some numbers repel. Right. So you can see somebody that's conflicted. Yes. You can see somebody that's tense and agitated and stressed, because their dynamic might be working against them. They may be able to work or act through it, but the underlying pressures and stresses are at work, and it creates a different kind of dynamic which will snowball.
So, for example, if I knew of a relationship of some friends who are struggling in their relationship after marriage, would you feel that if they're skeptical, let's say they come, they see you, there is something that you're able to iron out, to change, to add perhaps, if they then see a difference in their relationship, if they feel a more positive action in their day-to-day life, would that then prove that to them, for example, that it works?
Right. It's interesting, because I look at the dynamic in my own relationship. Now, obviously, again, this is, for me speaking, no one will know my dynamic of my relationship apart from me and my wife and those that are closest to us. Now, there are energies that are about compatibility. Yes. Okay. And it's strange how this dynamic works, because it's a natural one that occurs when we have children. And it would explain a lot of the times why there are black sheep of the family, because you would see the energy dynamic and how that influences or impacts on the rest of the people in the household. But yes, generally when we meet, there is a dynamic that I look to straight away, because it's a one about compatibility. Yes. And there are certain energies that are like families or groupings, and they're attractive, or alluring to certain energies and repulsive to others. And this is why we resonate with some and detach from others. Now, normally or generally, when we're in relationships, we are drawn to the influences or energies that are appealing to us, and they're usually consistently a similar nature. But very occasionally you do get an opposite. Okay, and we say opposites attract. Yes, if it's the right kind of opposite, and there are really positive ones, it works, because where someone might be weak, someone might be strong, and it works. But you can't sometimes have two strongs, because it can rebel, and it can create conflict. But the right kind of power can come together and gel. Now, when I met my wife, our energies from this particular relationship energy was very on the same page, was very compatible. I changed my name energy for a certain reason. So my dynamic changed. further down the line, I changed and tweaked the energy in my wife's dynamic, and her energy changed. Now, I did this for her because there were certain specific reasons for
To
this,
help,
personal
yes,
reasons for
yeah,
this.
okay.
But in doing so, I changed the dynamic in our relationship.
Yes.
Now, the most important energy was there. It was the one that was in cycle. So we were always on the same song sheet. We were always, we had the same ethos and philosophy about things. But there was a dynamic in our names that was creating some turbulence. That's a good way of describing it, some turbulence. And I was aware of this. So there was something I wanted to do for myself. My energy was amazing and designed for a particular purpose. But I was always aware that I wanted to soften. So again, it sounds crazy, but I changed my own energy again. But when I did so, I had it with the relationship with my wife in mind. So I made our energies more synchronistic and compatible, and it makes a massive difference. Now, obviously, I can't prove that to anyone else. You'd have to speak to my wife about it. But I see that dynamic in people, and it makes perfect sense. You can see where clashes are. You can see where there's blocks. You can see where one might overwhelm or overpower another. And it doesn't have to be a masculine, feminine thing. It can just be the way things flow and the way, the focus, a locus of our intent, what our intentions are.
Yes. So ultimately, it's not like having a magical wand and you just, totally change a relationship. There has to be
there's real structure to this. I mean, crikey, this is engineering. We're talking about a dynamic. It's
compatible.
It is mathematical. Ultimately, even though I don't like saying it. There are components, there is a formula. When I'm building an energy, it's like building a cathedral. You have to make sure that, when you look at a Rubik's Cube, when we first started out playing with Rubik's Cubes, we did one side, but we couldn't do it all because we did one side, it would mess up the other side. You have to know how the components go together. And there is some sort of geometry involved in this. You have to get the configuration and the components right. It has to be balanced. You can't have too much of something, it will pull things out of balance. You've got to get all the sides matching up. So yes, there is some mathematics involved. There is some engineering involved, even though it doesn't look like it when I'm doing it. There's one part of what I do, it's very free flowing, it's very informative. And then when I'm working on constructing a new energy, there's periods of real quiet. In fact, sometimes I have to go completely away, change the focus, change the direction, change the energy, and then come back with the results. And sometimes, because there's so much out there, there's so many variations, these things take time, and you've got to understand what the intention is, what the purpose is, what it is you want. This is the most important thing, is knowing what you want, where you want to go. And I'm always looking at where you should be going, and is your energy compatible for where you should be going? Okay, and if that works, then we've got something to work with. If it's, sometimes, people are going through life in a pair of flip-flops, when really they could be getting there in a Maserati. So you want to be looking at that dynamic and why something's failing, or why you might be self-sabotaging, and getting the balance right to get them moving forward. People have been doing this forever. Celebrities have been doing it forever. People that have, I know singers that have changed their name 2 or 3 times. It's on the third attempt, they've got it right. The dynamics, free-flowing. And this is what it's about, that energy dynamic.
Thank you very much for everything, being so informative and for enlightening us. Thank you, and hope to see you on our next dialogue. Bye.